Hey class, I learned some cool features on another version of QGIS that I wanted to share with you. So to do that, you're going to need to install a different version of QGIS than what we've been doing. So when you Google download QGIS, usually you go to the current page to find the most stable version, but this time I want you to go to all releases, and previous releases are here. And I want everyone to find QGIS 2.18.28. Here we go. So you'll want to pick the 2.18 that allows for a setup. So let's see. So really any of these over here. So 2.18.28. So then when you go to pull up, after you download it and you go to pull it up for the first time, you'll type in QGIS and you'll see a few things pop up. And you want to go to the desktop. So QGIS desktop 2.1.28. Trim this out. Okay, so now we've loaded. So let's first start with a brand new project by going to Project New. And there's a few plugins you'll want to install. So when you go to Plugin and Manage, let's type in Animove, A-N-I, and it'll come up with Animove for QGIS. So you'll click on that and you'll hit the Install button. I've already done it. You want to install that, and you'll want to install TimeManager. So start typing in the word TimeManager, and you'll find that, and you'll install that. And the last one to install is called Points to Move. I'm sorry, Points to One. So you'll see that icon, Points to One, and you'll install that. All right, now we want to have it visible. So we're going to go to Plugins. So this is one setting that's a little bit different than previously. So we'll go to Plugins. We'll go to, let's see, Manage, Settings, and you want to check this box next to Show Also Experimental Plugins, because one of these is still set in experimental mode. And you will hit Close. You will also go to Processing and Options and Providers. You'll open up Animove, and you want to make sure that this box next to Activate is checked. And you may see this error pop up, and that's fine. You can go ahead and click OK and cancel. All right, so this loads everything in. So now let's get started with an example. So we're going to do some cool things here. So first, let's add in our CSV file. We'll continue working with that turtles data set so we can compare to the previous home ranges we made using RStudio and using QGIS 3.10. So first, let's add in our delimited text layer. It's in a slightly different place than before, but you'll still find it. For the file name, let's browse to that folder where we are holding our data set of the turtles location. So that's a CSV that we will open up. Remember to assign the X or the longitude field and the Y as the latitude field. So make sure those are set correctly. And the first record does have field names. So that's something that's different in this version of QGIS. We want to make sure that that is checked because that first row has headers. And then we hit OK, and it will load it in. Now, the first thing we have to do is tell it the coordinate reference system. So let's right-click and set layer CRS. And we want to tell it that it is it was projected to UTM zone 18, and it was based on a datum of WGS 84. So we'll start to type in WGS 84, and we'll see some options pop up here. We'll see lots of options pop up, and we want to make sure we scroll down to the right zone. UTM zone 18N, because we're in the Northern Hemisphere, and hit OK. Then we want to save this as a shapefile because currently it's that CSV. So we'll right click on it. We will go to Save As. Let's make sure the format is an Esri shapefile. We're going to browse to that same dataset folder. And now let's call it turtles_shape. I've titled it that already, so let's just call it turtles export. Maybe we'll call it _UTM, so we remember it's already been projected in UTMs. We don't have to do that step again. And then we hit OK. All right, so now let's do some fun things. So let's change our colors first by right-clicking on that exported layer, going to Properties, change the symbol to Categorized, and these turtles have unique ID numbers. So we'll change the column to ID. For the color ramp, let's pick this first one, that red. Reds, yellows, blues, and hit Classify. So that shows us turtle 1 is red, turtle 2 is orange, and so on. Now let's hit Apply and OK. All righty. So now let's make a heat map so that can show areas of dense amounts of locations. So areas where there's lots and lots of locations. So to do that, we'll go to Raster, Heat Map, and Heat Map. We'll put in that exported file. For the output, let's save it to that same folder with our data sets, and we'll call it something like turtles. Let's call it density. We'll keep it as a TIFF. And we don't need to mess with the radius unless you want to. And hit OK. And this is going to convert it so it's looking through all the point locations to see which areas had the most amount of points. And so bright white is showing up as indicating that that's an area that has the most locations. But that's all the turtles put together. We're interested in each individual turtle, right? So let's make, let's do some fun things. Let's make a pathway showing those individual turtles. So let me remove that density layer. So let's go to Vector and points to 1. See, it shows up right under that vector, which is nice and easy to find, and points to 1. We're going to input that UTM layer. We'll select Create Lines instead of Create Polygons. We're going to check that Group Features By, and we're going to make sure we're grouping them by the ID number. So it's just going to make lines connecting where just each individual turtle went. And then the output, where we're going to save it, we'll save it to that same folder with the data set. And we'll call it turtle path. And we're saving it as a shapefile. Let's hit OK. And this is really fun. Oh, let me hit Add Results. OK. All right. But it's showing just one color, and we want to have the right color associated with it. So let's find that turtle path in our Layers panel. Let's right-click, go to Properties, and under the style, we'll change from single symbol over to Categorized. For the column, again, we'll set it to ID. For the color ramp, let's use that same one so they match. So let's use that first, red, yellow, blue. Go to Classify and Apply and OK. So now the colors make a little bit more sense. So I thought that was a pretty cool feature of this plugin. So that's one thing we could do. Another thing is we can make our MCPs of our home ranges. So we did that before, but now we can make it based on any amount. Instead of the 100% MCP, we could tell it we want a 95% or a 50% MCP. So that is very useful in ecology because we tend to use a lot more of 50% to see the core home range and 95% rather than 100. So to do that, over in this processing toolbox is where we're going to see it. But let's say you didn't have your processing toolbox open. It's really easy to get to. Just go to processing and toolbox and it pops up. And sometimes Animove is at the top, sometimes it's at the bottom, but you want to open that up and then open up the tools, double click on MCP, make sure you're putting in your exported shapefile, not the CSV file. For field, this is where we put the ID so that we make sure we're making an MCP for each individual turtle. And here's where we can tell it if we want 95% or 50% core home range. And then we can save it to that same file as before. It's going to take a little while to find it. So we navigate to the right folder. Let's call it turtles on 50 MCP. So that's my 50% home range. And let's make sure we click the open output after running box. All right, so again, let's have the colors make sense. So let's right click, go to properties, change our symbol, just like we did before, and change the column to ID. The color ramp, let's have that first one. Go to classify, hit apply, and OK. So now we start to see that the colors are making sense. So what's really cool about this is it can also calculate the values for you. So not only making this pretty map, but also when you right click and go to open attribute table, there you go. So it shows you for turtle 1, the area was 7,284 square meters. So I say square meters because we had projected the locations into UTMs, and UTMs, the measurement for UTMs is meters. So this is really helpful. And we can always double check this area. So for turtle 1, let's see if we'll measure it, and we'll see if we get around 7,000 square meters as well. So first, let's find where is turtle 1. So we will go to the identity tool or identify. So this I right here, we'll click on it, and let's click on this first one. Okay, so this is turtle 1 because TO01, and this would be turtle 2, and so on and so on. So let's go to turtle 1. And right here tells us the area, the perimeter, basically all the data associated with that feature that we selected. So now we can close that. I'm going to zoom in a little more to turtle 1. And now to measure, I'm going to go to this measuring toolbar. I'll click that down arrow. I'll go to measure area. And then I start clicking around. Let me move this out of the way. I start clicking all around as best as I can. And come back to the beginning. And I right click to stop measuring. And so it's seeing around 13,000. So I overshot a few areas, but still you can see how it is measuring based on whatever unit I tell it. I could tell it if I want feet or acres, things like that. So that's some cool features I wanted to show you in this version of QGIS. So with ecology, we're constantly creating the 50% home range and 95% rather than the 100%. And I know this is a lot more user-friendly than our studio, and it's very customizable. So I hope you enjoy that and have fun playing around with it.